A group of Roman legionaries are standing by the water, their eyes fixed on the horizon, for it was they who had set up to conquer the mysterious land of Britain. But their plans had changed, and now they had to wage war on a god. By the emperor's commands they were to fight Neptune himself. They look at each other with hesitation, but finally they gather themselves and are ready to start their devastating attack. With a loud battle cry, thousands of legionaries start beating the shit out of water. With a loud cry they cheer for they have gained victory over a god and collect seashells to bring them home as spoils. Yes, that is a real story. Hello and welcome. In today's video we will be taking a look at the life of one of Rome's weirdest and most cruel emperors, Caligula. Caligula had a rough childhood. His father was reportedly poisoned and his brother was banished on charges of treason. He was remanded to the personal care of Tiberius, where he spent most of his childhood. Tiberius was the man who was responsible for the deaths of Caligula's mother and brother. Caligula then planned on taking revenge on Tiberius by killing him and decided to follow through with the plan as he entered Tiberius' bedroom where the emperor was resting. What followed was an awkward silence as the two of them stared into each other's eyes for a few seconds, and then Caligula just threw down his dagger and didn't do anything. He wasn't even punished for this. Tiberius did not give a single f***, it seems. Caligula, however, didn't have to wait for long. Tiberius died in the year 37 and it was Caligula who then acceded to the throne. With that he became one of the most powerful men on earth. Caligula then set aside some things that really mattered, mainly sleeping with other men's women. Already having gotten into an affair with his own sister in his earlier years, Caligula's sexual appetite had become quite large and needed to be filled. He often crashed weddings just to sleep with the bride and would later brag in front of the man whose future wife he had just stolen in order to really rub it in. Caligula also took pride in his own wife, who he would parade in front of soldiers naked because why not? He is also reported to have been threatening his wife that he will kill her as a form of flirting. These threats left his wife relatively unfazed, so he had really met his match in that regard. But despite this ego boost, there was still something that was bothering Caligula. A prophecy had foretold that Caligula stood a better chance of crossing the Bay of Baiae than becoming emperor. So Caligula did what he had to do and built a 3-mile long bridge just so that he could cross the Bay of Baiae on his horse. Quite the costly and pointless endeavor, nonetheless, Caligula had done it, and did what every other rational human will do after accomplishing such a feat. He declares himself a living god. He then proceeded to order the building of a temple to honor him, which was completed when he was still alive. It featured a life-sized golden statue of the emperor who would wear the same clothes as Caligula each day. People also came and made offerings to the living god himself. Caligula would also dress accordingly, often wearing clothes and accessories attributed to the gods. Reportedly, he also ate like a god. According to some, Caligula had on his table loaves fashioned from gold and drank pearls dissolved in vinegar. Caligula also liked walking on gold, because why not, again? And one time he even went all out like Scrooge McDuck and waded in coins like water. The emperor, however, wasn't a benevolent god. He enjoyed hanging up new laws in places that were hard to reach and would write them in minuscule letters. If anyone had missed the memo, which wasn't hard to do given the circumstances, he would receive harsh punishments. It seems that the young emperor did these things mostly out of boredom and just because he could. One time his boredom also cost a lot of human lives. While watching gladiators brutally killing each other, Caligula got bored. Fair enough. He decided to alleviate his boredom by throwing a couple of random spectators into the arena to be killed as well. Just because he was bored. Who the f*** does that? Caligula also built large pleasure boats known today as the Nemi ships. Those ships were not meant for sailing or for doing anything productive really. They were mainly just for orgies. Yes, that's it. The man built 2 giant ships just for orgies. I mean, who wouldn't though if they were the most powerful man on earth? Despite his massive sexual appetite, Caligula also had a fancy for sport, often even participating in gladiator fights. One time, when he was fighting a gladiator in a mock fight, the gladiator purposely fell as to let the emperor get the win. But Caligula promptly responded with taking out a real dagger and just fucking killing the gladiator on the spot. and then celebrating in front of the baffled audience. His main sport, however, was chariot racing. Nowadays we might think that the main thing isn't to win but to participate, but Caligula said "F that" and tried to win with any means necessary. But how could he win? He wasn't even a professional athlete, I hear you ask. And this is where the secret ingredient comes in: cheating. Caligula would often just poison his rivals' horses on the night before the event and would take the victory while the other horses were suffering a horrible death. At least he won. Speaking of horses, Caligula was very fond of his own horse, Hesitatus. Now, it wasn't that abnormal for people in the ancient world to be fond of their horses. Alexander the Great was known for loving his horse a lot, but Caligula took this to a whole nother extreme by threatening to make his horse the consul, and actually elevating his own horse to the status of priest. The horse then passed legislation approving turning the palace into a brothel, as if 2 large ships meant just for that weren't enough already. His damage to religious life didn't stop there, however. One story recounts of how Caligula was supposedly in the midst of sacrificing a bull to the gods. He was to strike the animal on the head with a hammer. Everything was going according to plan. Caligula raised the hammer above his head, and then suddenly an idea struck him. In swift improvisation, he instead hit the priest on the head with a hammer, which mortally wounded the latter. Caligula would then burst out laughing at the dying man. Entertainment was something that Caligula both sought and provided, also he thought. There are stories of him inviting consuls in the middle of the night and providing no explanation as to why he had invited them. The consuls would arrive, all anxious and worried, only to see the emperor come before them and start dancing like a madman. Once Caligula had had enough of dancing, he would just stop and walk away as if nothing had happened. Unsurprisingly, all of his antics gathered him quite a reputation in Rome, and not a good one at that. Caligula was assassinated by Praetorian guards, who were supposed to be his bodyguards, so good work on that one, guys. His reign merely lasted a little over 4 years, but was filled with antics of every kind. And that was the story of Caligula, a man whose antics ranged from just purely cruel to baffling. However, one thing's for certain, his reign definitely wasn't boring or normal for that matter. But nonetheless, thank you very much for watching this video, and I will see you again very soon. Goodbye.